Welcome back. We are reconvening the Government Accountability Committee meeting of October 7th, 2021, and hitting the final 3 agenda items, I believe. One of them, and we began talking about it before the break, was to brainstorm the training for legislators. And I had written down on the agenda in November, ? And we are going to at least have a discussion about whether or not that makes sense or whether we should wait until we reconvene. By the way, we reconvene on January 4th, 2021. So I think just based on personal observation, if we wait until December, we're not going to get any sort of response from fellow legislators. I think that month is pretty well chock full of other activities. So to me, we either do something in November or we wait until we reconvene, and I'd love to hear others' thoughts about that. The 4th, by the way, is a Tuesday. So we'd have to carve out, and I'll let Justin answer how long we should have. I'm thinking an hour or 2 is plenty to at least introduce people to, how to use the dashboard, et cetera, et cetera. So what do folks think?
Reconvene.
Yes,
When we reconvene.
okay.
It doesn't seem like there's a lot going on with all legislators doing summer,
Yeah.
committee stuff. So I think though that it's at least an hour and a half because it takes how long just to gather people
Yeah.
when you're in session. It's not like a separate meeting.
I'd certainly be willing to talk to the pro tem and get her support for carving out any day that week. I don't care whether it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, an hour and a half. Then the next question would be location. Do we try to have it in the State House or do we go back to the place that we had it before? You mentioned
History Museum.
the History Museum, yeah. Senator Persley.
Are we going to be in the State House in January? I mean, it seems like it might be, if we don't know that, then.
As far as I'm concerned, we are. I'm very, very, very firmly in that camp. I don't see why we can't be here.
Like we are today, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, most of us that care to will have at least had a booster shot by then, and I don't know. Does that present any problems for the administration, Justin, if we wait till we reconvene?
No, not for me.
Okay,
I mean, it's better to do it later because then I have some time to actually develop the training.
okay.
And maybe we need it to be in a big enough room that, because we don't know what the separation will be for people at that point, but yeah, it's got to be small enough that they can see the screen and we would encourage people to bring their own computer to try and do the exercises together.
Yep.
So plugs.
The historical museum, what's its proper name? The museum next door. It was awful crowded.
Yeah.
There wasn't any no ability to separate.
Yeah, and how many would you say we had there? Maybe 80, 90?
Could have been. It was packed.
What about down in the pavilion theater space?
Good suggestion.
They have good.
Is there pretty good access? We could all bring our computers and
Yeah.
do that there? I don't know. You could put a big screen, I guess, on the.
The only difficulty would be if we do any like breakout work.
Yeah.
It's not conducive to that because it's stadium style.
Are you envisioning that though? I was thinking of just a overall, here's the dashboard, here's how you use it, any questions, that kind of thing?
I always like to have interactive components in my training if I can, but if it's not possible because the space is fine, I'll just talk, but.
There could be,
Good job, Ben.
Well,
there could be interactive questions with,
yeah,
So I would, are you saying a question?
I was just gonna say, definitely a question and answer, and maybe question and answer to us as the GAC committee from the members, if they've looked at it and have questions.
Sure.
And maybe we do 2 of them.
Yeah.
Because trying to get, everybody in the room at the same time, so If we scheduled two, I think would be good if we can, if not to make you do two of them.
Fine.
That means a lot of time.
Well, we could split the committee in half.
Yeah, we don't have to go
Do
to
one,
Yeah.
do the other. But if we do two, that ties us up for
Yeah.
3 hours.
As
Okay.
well as Justin's tied up for both. You know, another space that might be possible, we're supposed to have access to something on the fourth floor of the pavilion going back. There's been talk about that. If that's fourth floor of the pavilion is part of our expansion potential. If there's a concern about the auditorium format as opposed to flat,
Okay.
a regular room. Big room.
Yes, Representative Dolan.
So a couple of ideas to put out. I think in person is great. I feel like there are probably a lot of questions of, can we all meet? Like, I don't know if that's been decided yet. Like, would we be able to do all legislators together? And so it might be good to make sure all those questions are answered. Like, what is our max capacity? Because although we might be able to come back to the State House, we might not be able to congregate in a certain size group or something like that. And so that makes me wonder, is it possible to do two up? Like, do we want to have like one before the session that's by Zoom? I know not ideal, but for some, maybe that's a way to do it, and then do an in-person one. And I would say I really like the interactive component of it, and would love if we could include ways of like scenarios of how you could use this report, but also if we had legislators that would be willing to share how they've used it in the past and how it has, yes. So I think, and if we have, diverse legislators saying it too, so like from different parties, from different committees, Senate, House, so it's showing like, hey, this is a tool for everybody to use, I think would be great. So those are some of my initial ideas.
Okay. Why don't we do this? Justin, if you can find out from whomever you have to find out, what is available location-wise? Do we have to make a reservation for the auditorium or whatever that space is where the governor has his press conferences? Or as Representative Townsend indicated, up on the fourth floor? I think I've only been allowed up there once, so I'm not really sure where that room is, but, and how many they would hold and that sort of thing. Not that I'm against doing a Zoom thing, but I am so sick of Zoom. But I appreciate what you're saying, Representative Dolan, that some people may prefer that to, but that means that we got to either do it in November or were you suggesting that week?
I had a date necessarily in mind. I think it could be when it was convenient for folks.
Yeah, to me, if we're going to reconvene in person, there'd be no reason to do a Zoom one. If we do it ahead of that, I suppose we could pick a date in December and whoever shows up, I guess. I don't know how else
And
to.
we could do hybrid too, where people show up, they're there, and we also have a watch option.
Okay.
Time to do that.
So,
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because the first week, there's tons of other stuff going on. And so I just think that there might be people that want to come that just are conflicted. And so if we give them another option as a way to learn about it, that's better, whether it's two in-persons or a Zoom and an in-person. And before the session, I mean, December is a lot going on, but I think that would be good, early December, if we could.
so are you suggesting we do one on Zoom in December and then a in-person one that week?
Yeah, I think that's,
Okay,
if I had to choose, but I'm open to other.
well, let's maybe pick a date then.
Yeah, I kind of like that idea too, just because it's also a good practice session for,
Are we going to want to talk to our respective leaders, you
Oh,
and
yeah.
I, before,
Yeah,
just to
yeah.
ask them if they would encourage people to
Yeah.
participate?
Yeah. That would help.
What day of the week in December? I'd like to stay away from weekends because it seems like that's not as attractive.
good idea.
Hanukkah falls early this year. It starts in November, actually. So that
Starts November 29th. Or it begins
yeah.
November 28th at sundown.
How about Wednesday, December 8th?
There's an all legislative fiscal briefing, I believe, that date that hasn't been necessarily announced. I saw a little thing at the bottom of a joint fiscal committee agenda. It said this was going to happen. Haven't heard a word officially, but I saw it on their agenda. All legislative fiscal briefing, starting at 10 that day.
So that might be a good week because it's got, people will have their head into the legislature. So maybe either the 7th or the 9th.
As far as I know, I can do either.
Me too. What about Justin, since he's good?
I mean, 7th's better for me. That's open. 9th, I have things, but I can always move.
Okay.
7th.
7th it is.
7th.
And is
Instead of
there a
7th?
2-hour block that we think would lead to better attendance, like first thing in the morning or?
And then noon.
It's probably good for some, and, I mean, I'm up at 5:30 every day, so it doesn't matter to me. I'm not suggesting 5:30. By 6 or 6:30, I'm already going. So,
10 to noon works for me. I have drop off with my kid in the morning, so it's hard to.
yeah, so let's do 10 to noon on the 7th for the Zoom one. And then, to be fair, since we haven't talked either the speaker or the pro tem, once we reconvene, we'll need their blessing in order to, pick a day and a time that week. I mean, committees, because this is the second year of a biennium, so committee work will start probably that Wednesday. I don't imagine Tuesday there'll be anything. Maybe we should do it on that Tuesday when we reconvene. I don't know.
Why wouldn't the committees are all established, they all have bills hanging in their rooms.
Yeah, it's just a guess that
A lot more.
nothing ever happens on the first day. But I could be wrong. I don't know. And I don't know is it better to do it that first day or wait until the end of the week when everybody can't wait to go home?
Yeah, that wouldn't be good, I don't think.
I would be fine with that Tuesday.
Yeah. Are you thinking over lunch and add a half hour, or are you thinking at 3
Something like
o'clock?
that, yeah. Like when Senator White gets back, she'll give me a pretty good indication of whether government operations would be meeting that day in the afternoon or not. And to be fair, I think most of the committees that'll meet, it'll be more of a, hey, good to see you again. What'd you do? Kind of like, what did you do on school vacation kind of thing?
Maybe not a probes.
Maybe not.
Already in for a full week in December, working on budget adjustment. Plus the
Okay.
day before, we're scheduled to meet January 3rd also.
So, okay, let me ask for your guidance then.
Oh, no, because our committee is totally different from,
Okay. So the 7th for the virtual, and then Maida and I, Representative Townsend and I will speak to representative leaders to pick a good date that convening week for an hour and a half or so to brief people.
and the time. The day
Well, that'll
and time
depend on the,
That they suggest,
yeah,
our leaders.
yeah. I mean, it could be that Senator Ballin has something scheduled for Tuesday at 4 o'clock that everybody should be at, that kind of thing. I don't know that, so I.
The only
think we-
thing about doing it at lunchtime, just as is that I don't think we can eat over there, so we'd have to figure, people will want to eat at some point, but.
I'll make all those points with my leader.
And actually, you and I could, to our respective persons, let them know what we're up to and suggest they talk to one another and pick a time. Otherwise, we don't want them picking separately.
Yep.
We need to direct them to one another
Yeah.
to have the conversation.
And we should apprise them of the December
Yeah.
meeting too, in case they have something to add. Okay, well, by golly, we got that one done.
Yeah, okay.
Check that one off.
Keep moving.
So are we just putting it in, that's in your hands for creating the training? Do we want to, I just want to offer help and support. Like, do we want to voice or part of it, or like, how do we want that to look?
Well, I don't feel confident enough in my ability to train anybody on the dashboard. I certainly will look for Justin, just like you did today. I mean,
Yeah, Drew and I can sketch out a skeleton of it. I think it would be nice to provide an overview of Act 186
Absolutely.
and all that stuff, which I think makes sense to come from you,
Yeah.
the committee.
That's what it
And to make it so it's not just Justin, no offense, but I like Representative Dolan's idea of having legislators, if we can find some that say, this is how it's been really helpful for my committee or for the work that I've done as a legislator, just have a different speaker, an example of how people use it or when they look at it.
So maybe when we talk to the speaker and the pro tem, we can ask them to suggest people that we could lean on to help sell it, so to speak.
Testimonials.
Mhm.
Or maybe you or Drew know specific legislators that have been more active with you guys on.
Well, there's Representative Brumstead and there's Representative Kornheiser.
Oh,
Yep.
Kornheiser.
That's two very
Absolutely.
specific examples.
I'm,
Played that very role when we were over at the museum.
and I talk about the importance a lot, but I don't often, because technologically I'm not great. I've never really known how to use the meandering around it in online. So I'm not sure how helpful, but I know Emily is excellent at it.
But the thing I'm thinking about is you could describe what in human services, how you folks proceeded, for instance, with the childcare bill.
I could do that, definitely.
That's
That we went back and looked and
connection to
Yep.
the reality, the work.
Yeah. Okay, anything else on this? I don't know whether,
I was just gonna say, going back to what Justin was saying about the overview about Act 186, all of that's already existing. I bet Drew has it on the number for the workshop that we did back in February. It was all prepared in those slides.
yeah, so you
Excellent. Don't
should
recreate
be
it.
able to use that.
All right there.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that.
There was a series of slides all
Right.
prepared.
Yep.
They haven't gone through.
And I guess I'm curious, again, I'm very new, so I don't know what's needed, but is it helpful for our colleagues to hear from us of like, this is why we think this is important? Like we as the GAP committee are like coming to you saying, this is important. This is something we want to, like, what is our goal by having this training and having more legislators use? I just feel like if we could start off with an intro, a piece of it, like this is, we're setting the tone for what would be nice. Like, I don't know. I'm very content focused. Like, what's the plan? What's the goal?
also maybe Jill or Becca would be, I know Mitzi did that when we had
Mitzi
the last
can,
one
yeah.
and she
I'd
was
say-
great because she really said, this is why I think this
Yeah.
is important. I was a member of the appropriations committee and here's how it worked before and after. So maybe Jill would be willing to do that, or Becca.
Yeah,
I don't know
okay.
what committees Becca's been on, but I like the idea. And then it also, people see their name on top of the agenda and they're more willing to come.
Well, I think if I'm remembering right, the invitation that went out
What's from?
was from them.
Yeah.
So most legislators would say, oh, boy, I better go to that. kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I'll make sure that we talk with the pro tem and the speaker on that.
My apologies, Mr. Chair and Madam Chair.
That's okay. I don't know whether Susanna is ready for us. We have her scheduled at 1. If so, we can move to the next agenda item if possible. This is the update about the community profile project and where we are, what dates we're looking at. Because again, this will involve some of us attending some of these events, depending on when and where they are, so that we have some sort of connection. There she is.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, welcome.
I was double muted. Good afternoon.
So could you give us a little bit of an update as to where we are with the community profiles, please?
Yes. So we just had a quick meeting and I'm looking for my most recent notes. And of
Could you just
course,
speak up a little bit, Susanna?
Or turn up the volume.
Yeah, true.
Max on the line.
Wow.
Is this any better? Is this any better? I'm just gonna talk and you tell me if it's good.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm looking for my most recent notes, and of course they're nowhere to be found, but we did just have another check-in with BDH and other folks at AHS to discuss how that grant work is going to happen in a way that is, first of all, meaningful, and second of all, time efficient. So with the community engagement piece, and you'll have to forgive me, I'm going to dig up a PowerPoint. You know what? It might take me another minute to find that. I don't know if you all
That's
have
okay.
another agenda, and you can come back to me.
Yep, that's fine. In the interim, I can update Senator White on what we talked about for the training for the legislators. So we are going to do a virtual training session on December 7th from 10 a.m. until noon. And then pending Representative Townsend and myself talking with our leaders, we're going to hopefully do a in-person one the week that we reconvene, which is January 4th. So we don't know yet what day or what time or what place. Justin is going to look into the availability of the, I don't know what they call that room over the museum. No, we decided to do the,
Pavilion, yeah.
what's that? Is it
Pavilion auditorium.
auditorium where the governor has the press conferences, or perhaps upstairs on the fourth floor of the building. And depending on what Jill and Becca let us know, don't do anything on Tuesday because this is what we have planned, or don't do anything on Wednesday. We'll have to finalize a day and a time for that. And that way we give people a couple of shots at getting trained, and so that's where we are there. Did I stall long enough?
Thank you.
Thanks.
I just didn't want to misspeak. I didn't want to lie on a recorded line, so I wanted to make sure that I had the right info. So
Okay.
in terms,
Still having trouble hearing you.
is this any better?
Not particularly.
How about now?
Yeah.
A little
Okay.
bit.
All right. So let's see, community engagement. The plan for that is January January through May, actually. The idea is that we would have an external facilitator who could really help us to implement that community engagement plan. It's going to make sure that we're getting all of the regions that we need to. It's going to make sure that we have more trust building and more objectivity and neutrality, and just to be able to project manage. So we're thinking that between January and February that we can get that external facilitator to start implementing the community engagement plan, and we would do that by RFP. And then from about February through May, we would be doing that stakeholder engagement, which of course would really have to rely on all of you as well. And in that leg of the work, we would have the facilitator developing an engagement plan and a more concrete schedule, or a more specific schedule, I should say. We would have, communications worked out, translations would need to be planned out ahead of time. And then go around the state, do the community engagement. By then, we will already have been working on the more technical aspect of it, the IT side of things. So that would be autumn to winter this year into next. And so by the time we get the public engagement piece worked out, which would be through spring of next year, we would end up being able to pivot and say, okay, now that we've got that input and we've got some sort of tech infrastructure built out, what are the data sources that we're going to be able to plug in, et cetera. Is that helpful?
Yeah. So I'm trying to recall what the committee was looking for. The proposed indicators, I guess, and/or outcomes that come out of the community engagement won't be ready until the summer of 22, correct? At least your suggestions of those. Okay.
That's the
That's what I
proposal
thought.
as it stands.
Yeah, okay.
So then, so then it would be up to this committee in the summer of 22 to look at those and then to make recommendations for the new legislature, if the changes are to be made. Is that the way the schedule would happen?
That's what I'm understanding. Is that not true, Susanna?
Yeah, that would need to be the plan if that's the timeline. Now, I mean, this is a proposal that is designed as it is. Part of it is because of the time-bound limitation of the grant money itself. And part of it is because we're doing the tech build out and the community engagement piece. So perhaps it's possible that we could adjust those tracks and maybe work on the tech piece at a later stage. I'm not certain though that, I'm being honest, I trust the folks who have put this together, that they know what they're talking about when they figure out how much time we need for the tech piece. So I would probably assume that this is pretty solid.
Okay. Representative Townsend.
Can you yet anticipate when the list of the meetings with the stakeholders or the actual interaction with the stakeholders would be happening, so that we would then be able to put those dates as available into our own calendars?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the work, I mean, we should have a good sense of when those could happen by around, hold on. I mean, I'm thinking, February, we should have that mapped out.
Thank you.
Okay. Representative Dolan.
So there's gonna be these meetings that are gonna be happening across the state to gather input and engagement on potential indicators. I'm curious what our goals as a committee are for participating or just attending them, and if the project has any goals for our committee members.
Well, that's a fair question. Representative Townsend and I did talk about that. Depending on how many there are and when they are, since these seem to be likely to be happening during the session, maybe one, maybe two, maybe three, maybe all 8 of us can attend one of them. It'll depend on when they are and our availability when we get to that point. But I think it is important that we at least try to attend and listen to folks, and that's how I see it, at least.
Well, and I won't speak for Susanna, but I think it's important for you all to try to get the engagement that is necessary to do a good job of this. So I know in the past it's been hard to get engagement when we're talking about indicators, right? But there's going to be an investment paid to do a bunch of community engagement work. So I think we should try to get as many people there as we possibly can. Make it worthwhile.
Representative Townsend.
Susanna, is it envisioned that these will be all in-person gatherings or some with technology, or what? Do you know yet?
We haven't figured that out yet. And I think a lot of that will be drawn out based on the proposals that we get for the facilitators. It's my expectation that we'll aim for in-person, but have backup plans for remote options, or ideally that we would make all of them hybrid to ensure the greatest amount of participation, especially if they're being done regionally, in which case you want to make sure that people are able to participate, where they are, so to speak. So I'm hoping for hybrid, and that also allows us to have more access for interpretation, not just with other languages, but also with ASL and transcription. So that would be a goal for me. But again, I think we'll have a much clearer picture when we get proposals in on all the various ways we could do it.
Okay, thanks.
Does anyone else have questions for Suzanne? Well, we want to thank you for taking time out to be with us today. You're welcome to obviously stay through the rest of the meeting, but we appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's kind of all in that TBD category, but depending on where I mean, if there's one in Brattleboro on a Tuesday night, probably won't mean that we'll be able to drive down to attend it in person, but we could certainly, hopefully, figure out a way to virtually attend it.
I think that
Yes, Senator White.
I think that when I was thinking about this in terms of us attending, I think it would be important for one or two of us to attend, but I don't think that it is a good idea for all of us to attend because it would be overwhelming, I think, because you might not get large groups of people. You might get 10 or 15 people there, and then if we have another. So I think that it would be important, particularly in our own communities, or maybe in other communities, so that we can actually get some information that we aren't usually hearing. But anyway, I think we can figure that out when they get the schedule.
Point taken, yep. Okay. Well, by golly, this committee is just rip roaring through this. The last item, because the one that says scheduling in November, we've already done that. We're meeting next on November 1st, by the way, in case you didn't block that out at 10. And as far as I know, it'll be in this room. It will not be on Zoom. But we need to brainstorm, at least begin to, recommendations to include in the annual report. If I'm remembering the date correctly, I think January 15th is the day by which we have to submit our annual report. There's Amarin, and I got the date right. Even more confident. So we talked a little bit today about possibly taking some of the genuine progress indicators into account and maybe substituting or adding indicators or suggestions therein. We don't need to do that necessarily to do it. We can do a report today if we want, and just say, nothing's new, pretty much. We're still doing our thing. Thank you very much for reading it. Or we can kind of dive in next time and talk about, for instance, whether we want to change some indicators. At that point, since it's January, both of the training sessions will already have taken place, but we could report that they took place. And if we have an idea how many people attended and all that kind of stuff, it would be good too, although that would mean that the GAC committee's got to get together again after the training. And I don't know, once the session starts, we generally don't meet. So it might be one of those forward-looking reports that says, as of the writing of this, we were scheduled to do this, this, and this. What else do we want to talk about next time in terms of our annual report?
There was the Common Data Standards Project, which Senator White had suggested, and everyone seemed to be supportive of last time. Moving forward, that we are planning, perhaps we could put in our report that we're going to be looking at doing this.
I remember.
Oh, you don't remember? Oh, thank you. No, I had suggested that I think that we can keep looking at indicators, but I would suggest that there's additional responsibilities that we could do. And one of them, I think is we have a problem collecting data, particularly, and we've talked a lot about disaggregating around race and gender. But I think that, and today we added age and
Gender, race,
there were four.
Geography.
demographic.
Okay,
Race, ethnicity, age, and gender.
ethnicity. Okay.
Gender.
Ethnicity. So my concern is that people are collecting it in many different ways. Some agencies do it self-declared. Some people do it by the person that's filling out the form. And so I had thought that we could make a recommendation
to the agencies and departments that they, or we could even come up with a standard way of collecting the data so that, and there are going to be some differences because there are some federal things that tell you how you have to do it, but for our own information so that we have data that can be compared with and is comparable. So that was my suggestion, is that we recommend that either they come up with something or that we come up with something and tell them that's the way they should do it and then see their reactions. So.
Senator Porchley.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I do remember it now. And I think at the very least, some like best practices on how to collect the data would be a good way to start. And I'm sure Justin could help with those. On the other, just on the overall topic, one thing that I noticed as a new member is if you look at the statute and then look at the reports, I wondered if we want to look at the statutory language and maybe make a recommendation for changes, because it seems like there's some things in there that maybe the committee doesn't really do anymore or isn't, can be changed. I mean, I don't mean to say that the committee isn't doing what they're supposed to do, but I mean, just seems like there's some things in there that were worded in a way that doesn't seem like it's a priority or something that at least we should talk about, I think. Or at least as a new member, and maybe I can talk to folks offline.
Well, we do have an existing bill on the wall in GovOps. So we have a vehicle already in place. I think I know what you're driving at. There are some statutory charges that we, choose my words carefully, we either haven't done exactly the way the language is written, or we've since decided that we don't want to do them that way. And we probably could look at that and determine whether we want to change the statute.
Just have a recommendation.
Yeah, these will all be in our reports. So, yeah. The other thing I'll mention, I'm sorry, Representative Dolan.
I was just gonna say that sounds like a great opportunity to use the Plan, Do, Check, Act process for our own guiding statute and say like, oh, this is a great example of how we can look at the legislation that was passed. Is it meeting the goals? Is it doing this? So it could be an example of that process. The other one that I thought would be important to include in our report is the steps that we are set to take to look at disaggregating the data, like the community engagement, all that piece. Because it seems like that's really follow-up from last year's.
Absolutely.
I know Representative Townsend well enough to know she's taking notes
There I am.
for the next agenda. And the other thing I'll mention, Representative Townsend and I have been contacted by I guess I'll say a national, even an international group that is interested in government accountability. I'm not sure that the definition of this committee intersects 100% with what this other group does. In other words, I don't know that it's a perfect fit, but on November 10th, I believe she and I will both attend this. I don't know if it's a seminar or a meeting or
Panel.
a panel. Okay. That implies that we'll have to be prepared to say something. I would rather just sit and listen. And maybe you have more eloquent way to say what I'm trying to say here, but that will also, unfortunately, it'll come after our next meeting, so there won't be any chance for you to know. I had first looked at the invitation and thought, I mean, we're talking about other countries and that it wasn't what we do isn't what they do, I don't think, but nonetheless, I think we'll do it.
Is this the Council on World Affairs? Yeah, they contacted me too.
Right.
Okay,
I explained to them what we do and asked if it was a good fit because we didn't think we fit with the way they wanted to approach transparency, government accountability. It sounded like a different kind of approach to accountability as opposed to data. But I explained it all with statutory references and whatnot so that they could make their references. They could check out exactly what we do. And we heard yesterday, as a matter of fact, that
they still want us.
I still want.
That's because they're right. Yeah, I think when most people talk about the term government accountability, they think somehow this committee could have stepped in with the EB-5 thing and made people accountable. That's not what this committee does. It was never intended to do that. So sometimes when you tell other people in another place about government account, oh, I know what that means. And so I'm not still convinced 100% that it's a fit, but we'll do it and we'll see what happens.
Will we get a link to it? So we can watch?
So we can watch you.
You can attend in my stead if you like. Yes, Representative Thompson.
Before I just want us to come back to the brainstorming for our annual report before it's forgotten and when that's appropriate, because there's a thing we haven't gotten on our list yet.
Okay. Does anyone else have something else?
With regard to the November 10th meeting.
Yes.
Finish up on that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you and I will do it and we'll see what happens from it. I guess you're going to be involved too, or did you decline?
I'll be involved and I need to touch base with them.
Oh,
They haven't given me a date. They just said they wanted to talk.
yeah. And this is the first I've been contacted by them. You seem to think that
It's the Vermont Council on World Affairs, of which I have been a member in the past.
okay.
And I have had former students actually be on their staff. It's a very reputable group. They do
Yeah,
a
and
lot
you know
of
who-
international work.
who used to talk to them a lot and in a very knowledgeable way was Senator Galbraith.
Oh.
He's, because of his experience in Afghanistan and stuff, he's a regular presenter with them.
Okay. Well, as I say, it's post our next meeting, so I'm not sure. I just want to make people aware of it. Okay,
So back to our
report.
yes. And Amarin's been waiting patiently for us to get
Oh, okay.
a thing that we had on our agenda list here, and we can't forget about it. We had talked last meeting about having folded into the orientation, which newly elected legislators attend in the fall before they actually take their seats, before they're sworn in, to have included in the orientation materials a presentation about what GAC is all about and the data.
The report, the data, yeah.
The whole business. So that it's not just currently sitting folks that get the training. It's when people are brand new. They get some foothold, which folks were not able to.
Is this also where we would put recommending that this goes on the website?
I was thinking we could already have that accomplished.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, okay, apart from the potentially still in the, could be reported.
Yeah.
We're gonna do, yeah, because I was going to say, if it's okay with you folks, I would check in, I'll take care of talking with Mike Ferrand, who heads up the ledge operations,
Mhm.
to find out the proper protocol for the link being put on all the committee pages, including our own. That's,
That would be appreciated. Yes, for sure.
then I'd let you know what,
And we can put that in our report too.
yeah, that it's,
I think that's what I was.
Yeah, this would be for people that are going to be elected in 2022.
the training.
So there would already be in place training for them all set up so that they have the benefit. Unfortunately, you guys didn't do that mostly because the virus, I guess.
We'll be fine.
Yeah. I have no doubt. So yeah, that would be part of our report too.
Yeah.
Are there,
Essentially covering the sorts of things that are going to happen during our Zoom
exactly.
training and our first week of session
Yeah.
training.
Amber, did you take any notes or can remember anything we're not thinking about in terms of our annual report?
For the record, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Oh, okay, perfect. I was doing some rewiring this morning and I thought perhaps my microphone got detached. For the record, Amarin Abergele Legislative Council. There was one item that was discussed early on in the committee's work this summer, and I'm not quite sure where the committee landed, which was the timing for potentially updating the outcomes in in statute versus the work the committee is looking to do on the indicators. And so I just wanted to check in on where we landed on there and whether that was something the committee wanted to include in the report, a recommendation as to timing of indicators versus outcomes and how that might progress.
I'm glad that you remembered that because it did completely escape my my attention. Senator White.
Wouldn't that also, the community profiles project that would feed into that during the session next year, and then next summer, we would be looking at both indicators and outcomes? I mean, I think that's where, because that's where any changes would come from, I think.
I think
They would be proposed here, and then we would look at them. That was the way I understood that they would suggest both changes to both incomes, outcomes, and indicators
Yeah, as a package.
as a package.
And even the things that were suggested, we talked a little bit about earlier, that long list.
Yeah.
It seems like they should be a part of the discussion around the community profiles and all of that, because some of those things might come up anyway, like
Right.
housing. I bet we will hear about housing. So that would be the right time.
Mm-hmm.
So the bill is introduced, I don't remember the number, S something. The focus of it was to incorporate, I think it was outcomes 8 and 9, I might be off by one.
Two of them.
Into one, so that we would have 9 outcomes instead of 10. If we don't do anything with that bill, things will just stay the way they are now, which is fine, pending the outcomes, no pun intended, of the meetings with the community stakeholders, so that we have at least recommendations for suggested indicators and outcomes down the road. And I'm fine with that. You're looking at a statute, is that?
I'm just double checking that I was wanting, and for my own peace of mind, wanting to double check the act number 166.
Okay.
Because I think we don't want to change outcomes
And then change.
and then change them again. I think that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So good pickup, Amber, and I appreciate that. That was great. And to your knowledge, we've pretty much covered the rest of what we need to talk about on November 1st.
I believe so. This wasn't explicitly said today, but this committee earlier took in some information from sort of an informal survey of other legislative committees about the use of the GPI report. And I think the ultimate result of that conversation was not a recommendation that report be done again right now, but I wanted to confirm, because we are talking about potentially exploring looking at GPI indicators going into the state outcome indicators. So I just wanted to confirm my understanding that that's where the committee left off.
My right-hand person is copying that down, and you are correct. We talked a lot about that the preceding meeting. We talked a little bit about it today. Nothing's changed. The Gun Institute hasn't gotten back to us. We have no authority to allocate any funding for it. And so we can mention it in the report that we did take a look at the GPI, and at the moment, there's no impetus to go through it again. We just don't have anybody to do it in essence, or the money to pay for somebody to do it. So, yes,
But that, even so, because the interim chief performance officer has identified a list of CPI indicators, which might be useful in our Act 186 outcomes and indicators, that those will be part of our overall discussion in the context of the community profiles input and all of that when we get to the summer of 2022.
right. Okay. Well, thank you, Amarin, for your input. We appreciate that. And unless you have something else, I think we're all set.
I do not. Thank you.
Oh, Representative
For
Thomas.
the sake of folks new to the committee, just so you know, Amarin has the task now of actually drafting our report. It's not like we sit around and try and create the report all together. She will present us with a draft and we can just say, yeah, we like this or we don't. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wish I had an Amarin. Geez.
Okay, thanks, Ameren.
Thank you. Bye.
Can I ask one more question? I'm sorry, this is now occurring to me. Is there a date that the committee is looking at a draft?
Yeah, the next meeting.
November 1st.
Yeah, the next meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And, I think you already know, but if you desired any help, Betsy Ann Rask has drafted the last 3 reports. And I'm sure, because I've spoken to her, not recently, but along the way, she'd be perfectly willing to give you any assistance that you might need in that regard.
Thank you. She has been extremely helpful. I'm
If you
sorry.
need any content, if you need content from me, just feel free to reach out. Happy to
I will
help.
do that.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Ameren.
Thanks.
Okay, so the next meeting is November 1st, 10 a.m. And hopefully in the interim, Representative Townsend and I can get a hold of our pro tem and our president or our speaker and figure out what we're going to do that first week of reconvening. And does anyone else have anything you want to? Yes, Senator Bridges.
On the link, the Representative Towns is going to look at for the committee pages. We could link to the report or, to the outcome measure, but we could also just link to their page, which has all of them, and the memo, which if you do that, then you don't have to update it every year. But then there's another step, the person has to go find it. So something to think about. And on the legislation of the committee, one simple fix would be change the shall to a may, because there's all these shalls that it seems like are out of date. So that would be an easy thing to do. And then we could do the ones that we want to do.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
It would be interesting to talk about that on the floor, though.
We decided not to do them.
Well, right now it's a shall, and I think there's an argument that we are doing them. So.
I just remember I had to present one of the changes to the statute way back when I was on my first year, actually. And, people asked a lot of questions. So people seem to really care about government accountability, which is a good thing.
Yeah. Well, Senator White will be reporting that bill.
That's right.
I don't have to worry about it.
Come to the house.
That's true. And you could delegate as well.
I'm not on the government operations committee anymore. It'll be someone beautiful.
Okay.
I have, may I make an announcement
Of
that has
course.
nothing to do with this, but it does affect all legislators and you might be. So I'm chairing the pension task force this summer. And I thought of it because our next meeting is November 1st. On November 1st, there's going to be a public hearing on the pension task force. We'll get the word out and stuff, but just so that you know, we're trying to get the word out to as many people as possible before that. There will be a press release sent out and all that kind of stuff. But just so that you know, if people in your area ask about because we've all got teachers and state employees, so.
What time is the hearing?
6 to 9, and it's going to be virtual, I believe.
So you'll still be able to.
It might be a hybrid, both in person and virtual, but we haven't decided that yet. But it will be November 1st, 6 to 9.
Okay.
Yep, that's what I have, 6 to 9.
Anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn until the 1st of November.
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?